Hello, welcome back to another session. So in this session, I am going to explain about alloys, importance of an alloy, and different forms of alloy systems. So that will be discussed in this class. First, we have to discuss about an alloy. Actually, an alloy is a mixture, or you can say combination of two or more materials in which one should be a metal, and it constitutes a major part of the alloy system, and it is termed as a base metal. When the other elements are called alloy elements, or you can say constituents of an alloy. So what are all the alloys we have? Steels, cast iron, brass, bronze. No doubt steel is an alloy of iron and carbon, but percentage of carbon is a maximum of 2%. In cast iron, the percentage of carbon is more than 2%. And brass and bronze, they are alloys, they are the alloys of copper. Right? What is the importance of alloy? Why we have to go for alloys? See, whatever the materials we use today for making the structures, machines, machine components, they're all alloys only. Why? Because pure material is generally, it is very soft and weak in nature. That is why it will not fit for our engineering application. Right? If that pure material, if you add some alloying elements, you can enhance mechanical properties to the greater extent. That's why. So alloys are widely used material than the pure metals. For the example's sake, you can take tool steel. Tool steel makes sense. The material which is used for making tools. It is an alloy. And stainless steel, whatever the material you see in our houses, utensils, cutlery items, surgical instruments, they're all made of the stainless steel. So why? Because it is possesses a very good property, that is the corrosion resistance. Right? Say for a pure metal, if you add some alloying elements, we can enhance certain specific features of it, that material. You can enhance corrosion resistance. You can enhance the hardness. You can enhance wear resistance. Like this, so many mechanical properties of the material could be enhanced by adding alloying elements to the pure metal. But the question is how to make an alloy. Generally, in order to make an alloy, what we are doing is to the base metal, we have to add constituents, or you can say alloying elements, and all together are melted together. All this mixture is melted together in order to form an alloy. Then afterwards, that the entire melt was solidified. Then only we'll get an alloy. What are all the advantages of alloying? See, the first advantage is strength. So as I discussed, alloys are stronger than the pure metals. Alloys are stronger than the pure metals. Right? In order to enhance the strength of the material, so we had to go for alloy. Melting point. Alloys have lower melting point than the pure metals. For the example's sake, you can take a cast iron. Cast iron is an alloy of iron and carbon, but percentage of carbon is more than 2%. If you see the melting point of a pure iron, so pure iron having a melting point of 1530 degrees centigrade, but cast iron, it is an alloy, it is having a melting point of 1200 degrees centigrade. See, this melting point was reduced by adding alloying elements to the pure metal. And the third point is the durability. Alloys are harder than the pure metals. That is why they are more durable, as they do not wear out as soon due to hardness. No doubt, alloys are very hard materials. Because of its high hardness, it has wear and abrasion resistance. That is why these alloys are having higher durability. So that is one advantage. And another advantage is the resistance to air acids. Alloys are generally resist action of air and acids are more than the pure metal, right? So example, say you can take this stainless steel. The stainless steel, what we use in our domestic appliances, right? So the stainless steel possesses very high corrosion resistance. More frequently, it will be exposed to moisture as well as water, right? So this is one example of alloy. So alloys possesses resistance to air, acid as well as water. And the next is castability. Alloys gives good casting. Once again, you can take the example of cast iron. Cast iron is an alloy of iron and carbon, right? So the castability of cast iron is very high compared to pure iron. So this is the another advantage of alloying. The next is luster. Luster, alloys are more lustrous and retain their luster better than the pure metal, right? Luster means shining. They shine more as compared to the pure metal. So this is all the advantages of alloy. Generally, alloys can be found in three different forms. The one is you can find alloy system in the form of solid solution, and alloys can be had in the form of chemical compound, and third one is we can have alloy system in the form of mechanical mixer, right? So this alloy system could be found in three different forms. The one is a solid solution, and the second one is chemical compound, and the third one is a mechanical mixer. What is a solid solution actually? Generally, a solid solution composed of two parts. One is a solute, another one is a solid. A solute is the minor part of the solid solution, which is going to be dissolved, while the solvent constitutes the major portion of the solid solution. Solvent is the major portion of the solid solution, and the solute, that is the material that is going to be dissolved into the solvent, and that is the minor portion of the solid solution, right? If you add a solute to the solvent going to lose its crystal lattice, and the solvent going to retain its crystal lattice. For the sake of example, we can take sugar and water. So water is a solvent and sugar is a solute. Once you add solute into the solvent, right? So this solute, which is completely going to be dissolved into the solvent, it means it is going to lose its crystal lattice, and the solvent, it is going to retain its crystal lattice, right? So we can say a solid solution is simply a solution in the solid state and consists of two kinds of atoms in one space lattice. Generally, a solid solution is simply a solution in the solid state and consists of two kinds of atoms combined in one type of space lattice. So the solid solution consists of two different types of atoms. So one atoms belongs to the solute and one kind of atoms belongs to the solvent, right? The solute atoms and solvent atoms, they'll have one type of crystal lattice, right? So we can find this a solid solution in three different forms. One is unsaturated solid solution, then saturated and supersaturated solid solution. First, we have to discuss what is a saturated solid solution. If the solvent dissolving less of the solute than it could dissolve at a given temperature and pressure, it is said to be unsaturated solid solution. It means our solvent going to dissolve less of the solute than its capacity. If you add some more, it is going to dissolve, but we are adding only a small quantity of solute into the solvent, right? So this kind of solid solution, what we can say is unsaturated. If the solvent is dissolving less of the solute than it could dissolve at a given temperature and pressure, it is said to be unsaturated solid solution. Generally, that the solubility of the solute into the solvent is a function of temperature and pressure. It is a function of temperature and pressure. If you increase the temperature, of the solvent, the solubility of the solute increases, right? For example sake, you take a sugar as well as water. If you dissolve this sugar into this water at a room temperature, it is going to dissolve only lesser quantity of solute. If you heat the water, right? If you add some more sugar, it is going to dissolve. It means solubility of the solute into the solvent is a function of temperature, right? So unsaturated solid solution is one. So there the solvent is dissolving less of the solute than it could dissolve at a given temperature and pressure. It is said to be unsaturated solid solution. So next is the saturated solid solution, what it is actually. If the solvent dissolving the solute to its maximum level, to its capacity, that is called saturated solid solution. Here, the solvent dissolving the solute to its level, to its maximum capacity. We can say this is a saturated solid solution. So next is a supersaturated. If our solvent is dissolving more of the solute than it could, the solubility of solute is that solute quantity is very high. Where we have added more of the solute to the solvent, it becomes a supersaturated solid solution, right? So like this, we can find solid solution in three different forms: saturated solid solution, unsaturated solid solution, and supersaturated solid solution. See, the solid solution we can find in two different types. One is a substitutional solid solution. So another one is interstitial solid solution. In the type of substitutional solid solution, the atoms of the solute substitute for the atoms of the solvent in the lattice structure of the solvent. I told you that the solvent going to retain its crystal lattice. Solvent means that major portion of the solid solution going to retain its crystal lattice, and solute, that element that is going to be dissolved, it is going to lose its crystal lattice. In this type of solid solution, the atoms of the solute going to substitute the atoms for the solvent in the lattice structure of the solvent. So it could be easily understood by the diagram. You can see the diagram here. So here, this is the crystal lattice. This is the crystal lattice. All the circle represents the atoms, but one atom is one color and the other atom is another color, right? The green circles are there, they represent the atoms of the solvent, and the blue circles, they represent the atoms of the solute. See, this solute going to lose its crystal lattice, and that atoms of the solute substituting for the atoms of the solvent in the lattice of the solvent atom, right? So in this crystal lattice, blue atoms are substituting the green atoms. Blue atoms are substituting the green atoms. It means the atoms of the solute substituting for the atoms of the solvent in the lattice of the solvent, right? So this type of substitution is possible if the solute atoms and the solvent atoms are the same size. Solute atoms and solvent atoms are the same size, the substitution will be possible. Otherwise, it is impossible. For the example's sake, we can take silver atoms, may substitute for gold atoms without losing the associated crystal of the gold. And the gold atoms may substitute for silver atoms in FCC lattice of the silver, right? The next is the interstitial solid solution. Interstitial solid solution. Now, the atoms of the solute metal occupy the vacant positions or interstices between the solvent atoms. This may be formed only if the diameter of the solute atoms is smaller, that is 0.6 times the diameter of the solvent atom, so that they can be accommodated in the interstices in the interstices of the solvent crystal lattice. Again, you can see here. So the green circle represents the solvent atom, and the blue circle, a smaller blue circle, represents the solute atom. Now you can see there is a greater diametral difference for the solute atoms as well as for the solvent atoms. There is a larger diametral difference is there. So that's why here the substitution is not possible. So in this case, the atoms of the diameter of the solute atom is very small. That's why it is not going to substitute for the atoms of the solvent. So what it is doing is it is finding the vacant spaces in the lattice of the solvent, and it is going to occupy the vacant spaces. It is interstices the space between the atoms of the solvent lattice, right? So it is going to settle in the gaps of the lattice of the solvent, and this type of solid solution, what we can say is interstitial solid solution. So interstitial solid solution is only possible if there is a diametral difference is there for the solute atoms as well as for the solvent atoms, right? It means the solute atom is 0.6 times lesser than the diameter of the solvent atom. Next is a chemical compound, right? So this is a form of alloy system. Alloys can be had in the form of a solid solution, or it can be had in the form of chemical compound, or it is in the form of mechanical mixture. Chemical compound, what it is? No doubt we know this allying nothing but combining two or more materials. If in this alloy system If the components of the alloy system, they have very high chemical affinity, if they have very high chemical affinity, if they have very high chemical affinity, what is going to happen? These elements, they react together and they'll form a chemical compound. For example, so we have added component A and component B, say metal A and metal B. These two metals A and B, they have very high chemical affinity. They are ready to react with each other, right? So after mixing them, so this metal A, component A and component B, they react together and it gives rise to a third element, let us say that metal C. We can say metal C, it is a chemical compound, right? And that lattice structure of the chemical compound, which is quite different as compared to its parent metals. The lattice structure of the product of the reaction is a different, that is called chemical compound. The lattice structure is quite different compared to its parent metal. Generally, a chemical compound possesses high hardness, high brittleness, and high electrical resistivity, right? So chemical compound going to form if the elements of the alloy system have very high chemical affinity. Next is a mechanical mixer. The components of an alloy which do not react chemically will form mechanical mixer in an alloy. The components of an alloy do not react each other form mechanical mixture in an alloy. When all the components melted together to form an alloy, during the solidification, these components are separated simultaneously from the melt and form a closed mechanical mixture. The investigations have shown that crystals constituting mechanical mixture remain their crystal lattice of original component of the alloy. So when you form an alloy, what we are doing is we are combining all the elements and all the elements simultaneously melted together. So during the solidification, what is going to happen? So this components of the alloy system, they are simultaneously separated from the melt and form a closed mechanical mixture, right? The investigation have shown that the crystal constituting the mechanical mixture retain their crystal lattice. See, whatever these elements we mixed together during the formation of mixture, they are not going to lose their crystal lattice. Once again, they retain their crystal lattice. They retain their crystal lattice. So next is Homer-Rutherford's rule for solid solubility. So Homer-Rutherford is a scientist, he is an investigator. He made a lot of investigation on solid solutions. Based on his investigation, he listed certain key points, right? These key points defines the solubility of a solid solubility. The first factor is crystal structure factor. Complete solid solubility of two elements is never attained unless the elements have same type of crystal lattice, right? Complete solid solubility of two elements never attained unless the elements have same type of crystal lattice. For example, you have element A and element B, or you can say metal A and metal B. One is a solute, another one is a solvent. Let us say the solvent having BCC crystal lattice and the solute also having a BCC crystal lattice. So complete solid solubility is possible only if these two elements have similar type of crystal lattice, right? If the solvent having a BCC crystal lattice, solute also having a BCC crystal lattice, okay? If you combine them, you can have a complete solid solubility. our solute, it is going to be dissolved completely into the solvent. In contrast, suppose say this is solvent having FCC crystal lattice and the solute having BCC crystal lattice. If you combine them, you could not have a complete solubility of the solute into the solvent. So this is one of the big factor. Another one is the size factor, relative size factor. The size factor is favorable for solid solution formation when the difference in atomic radii is lesser than 15%, right? So in the previous slide, we have seen what is the substitutional solid solution, what is an interstitial solid solution. So in order to have a favorable solid solution, that atomic radii difference should be lesser than 15% between solute and solvent atoms, right? In order to have a favorable solid solution, the atomic radii difference for solute atoms and solvent atoms is lesser than 15%. Then only we can have a favorable solid solution. So this is called a relative size factor. And the next is chemical affinity factor. Chemical affinity. The formation of solid solution is favored for metals that have a less chemical affinity. If the chemical affinity is more, chemical compound is formed instead of solid solution. Yes. So solid solution is favored for the metal that have less chemical affinity. Less chemical affinity means they do not react each other chemically, right? If the elements have higher chemical affinity, they react together. Instead of forming a solid solution, we are going to have a chemical compound, right? So in order to have a solid solution, the favorable condition is that elements should have less chemical affinity, right? So that is one important factor. The last factor of a Hermite-Rutherford rule is relative valency factor. A metal that has a higher valency will dissolve only a small amount of lower valency metals. Whereas metal that has a low valency will have a good solubility for higher valence metals. You know what is higher valency metals and lower valency metals, right? If you take the electronic configuration of any element, if you find more number of free electrons in the outermost orbit, we can say that metal having higher valency. It means metal that has a higher valency will dissolve only a small amount of lower valency metals, whereas metals with lower valency will dissolve good solubility for higher valency metals, right? So these are the Hermite-Rutherford rules for solid solubility. So in this session, we have discussed about what is an alloy, what are the importance of an alloy, what are the advantages of an alloy, what are the different forms of an alloy, right? All the things we have discussed. So no doubt an alloy is a combination of two or more materials. In that one should be a metal, and it is called a base metal, and the other metals, other elements are termed as the constituents of an alloy system, right? So in order to form an alloy, all this base metal along with these constituents, all together they are melted and solidified, right? Then only we can form an alloy. And the alloy could be had in the form of a solid solution, or it is available in the form of a chemical compound, or you can see alloy system in the form of a mechanical mixer, right? So why we are going for alloying? Generally, we are limiting the usage of pure materials in our engineering. Why? Because pure metals are very soft and they are very weak in properties, in strength. That is why they are not fit for our engineering application. So that is why we are going for alloying, right? If you add some alloying elements to the pure material, you can drastically change their mechanical properties. Okay, that's why we are going for alloys. So whatever the materials we use today, all are alloys. We are not at all using pure metals for our engineering applications. Engineering application means for all structural applications, for making machines, machine components. For all the purposes, we are using alloys. Example, you take mild steel, stainless steel, alloy steel, tool steels, right? These are all alloys only. Okay. So thank you very much. Thank you.